Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Your Football Opinion. I am your host, Theo Ash, and we've got a full slate of preseason action to talk about. Specifically, I want to go over the extended look we got of Drake Maye. Last Thursday, I don't count the Panthers game as his debut. He only had like one pass downfield. Against the Eagles, we got to see him a lot, so I want to talk all about that. We also got a longer look at Jayden Daniels, 2 drives from him. I want to compare those two, the number 2 and number 3 overall pick, how they look within their offenses. We also got to see the Bills' starting defense without Matt Milano. They're going to need one of their linebackers to step up. Who might take that leap? We're going to get into that. For the Trey Lance heads out there, we're going to look at what he's doing in Dallas. Is it over? Or are we back? And then who knows what else I'll get to. What other asides I'll go on about. But first, let's talk about Drake Maye. I thought he looked fantastic in his de facto debut last Thursday. Operating Alex Van Pelt's West Coast system, it was a real drop-back passing offense with full field reads, front side and back side that he was getting to. He ended up 6 of 11 for 47 yards, and then he had 15 rushing yards to go along with that, and a rushing touchdown. Not the craziest stat line, but what he was doing and the throws he was hitting really moved me. Starting on the third down, 3rd and 5, first one of the game. He's got a corner route that he looks at first. It's taken away by the cover 3. Quinion Mitchell was capping it high and outside, so that was dead. The weak side safety took away the flat route underneath it. So Maye went 1 to 2, and then as soon as he hit the top of his drop, he already eliminated one side of the field, got his eyes to the back. Javon Baker was breaking into his vision. He had separation. The only thing Maye had to worry about was the will linebacker. On the backside, he was free to make a play. With the number 1 and number 2 reads breaking out, there was no one for him to cover. He was reading Maye's eyes, started drifting to the middle of the field, but Maye put it in a place where that will linebacker had no chance of getting it. He put it down in a place where the cornerback trailing Baker couldn't get it either. Perfect accuracy, very efficient footwork, eyes, everything you want to see. That's a real read, 3rd down. Love it. The only thing I didn't love about this play was Javon Baker jumping to make the catch and kind of double catching it. The whole night, he just looked uncoordinated. I thought he was this loose, fluid route runner in college. He might be a little bit too loose because he needs to be more under control, more balanced. And that was a problem that we saw a lot in this preseason game and over both preseason games, really. He had another backside concept later in the game. He hit that huge post route, 55 yards in the air. He uncorked it over the middle of the field, hit Baker right in his hands. He dropped it. Not totally sure what to call this coverage. On one side of the field, it looked like cover 2 with the safety getting depth towards the sideline. The corner sunk with the Z receiver going vertical for a little bit and then broke off. On the other side, it did not look like cover 2. It definitely wasn't cover 2. The other safety drifted down to take away the tight end sitting down over the ball. So he was a robber. And then the corner seemed to be playing trail technique man coverage. So there was no post safety. It was pretty easy for Maye to make that decision. But again, liked what he was doing with his eyes, looking front side, holding that cover 2 safety there for a little bit, seeing the post develop out of his peripheral vision, climbing the pocket, uncorking the throw. Huge play from him. Hit it perfectly. Not his fault that it was dropped. One thing to watch out for that I noticed on this play, when he hit the top of his drop back, he was at 10.5 yards from the line of scrimmage. A bit too deep. That makes it a bit too easy for the edge rushers to corner when they don't have to fully get their hips around and collapse the pocket from the back. They can just kind of run right at Maye. Makes it tough on the tackle. But once he hit that 10.5 yards of depth, he started immediately climbing the pocket, and he was helping out his tackles. There was a stunt that he drifted away from. That end could have gotten a little bit of pressure if he made the wrong move, but he stayed away from that. And then he kind of tucked himself right behind the setting left tackle and made it impossible for Nolan Smith to turn that corner. Really decisive with his movement there, kept his eyes downfield, hit that throw. Beautiful work. If you're going to be a quarterback in this type of offense, you need to be able to get to that third backside read, and Maye showed the ability to do that. Another thing that I really liked from him that he showed this entire game, he kept the ball out of harm's way, outside of the fumbled exchange with the center, which I don't know if that was a quarterback or center's fault. We'll see. They'll get that timing down, I'm sure. But outside of that embarrassing moment, he didn't put the ball in harm's way or take bad sacks. There was a time where the slot receiver was running a go, and the boundary receiver to the right of him was just sitting down. Maye looked at that deep route, saw it was capped vertically, moved onto the hitch, and as soon as he did that and started to cock to throw, the cornerback broke on the hitch, and Maye pulled the ball back, noticed that all this open space had opened up in front of him to scramble through, stepped up, ran, kept the offense on schedule, didn't throw to the breaking cornerback, and put the ball in any kind of risky position. Later, this was actually the very last snap that he had. There was a dagger route where, once again, the guy in the slot was clearing out vertical. This time, the boundary receiver was not just running a hitch, he was running an in-breaking dig. And when Maye hit the top of his drop, that was still a long way from breaking inside. He was at, I think, before the 40-yard line. He ended up breaking it around the 45. There were still yards to go before this guy was gonna make any kind of move. Maye really wanted it, though. He was looking at it, took a hitch forward, climbed the pocket again. And it was getting to the point where he was kind of staring the read down. Even though he really wanted it, there was a box around that dagger. Nakobe Dean was kind of drifting into the window that he wanted to throw to. And on the backside of the pass protection, the left tackle, I guess, didn't know that he had chip help and kind of ran into his running back, giving Nolan Smith this free access inside of him. And Nolan Smith was ready to deliver a huge hit for Maye. Maybe that window was there if he released it, maybe. But I think it's good that we never found out. I think it's good that he pulled that ball back, said, okay, I'm staring this down too long. I don't know. There's a little bit of a mess with the timing. I'm under pressure. He drew the ball back, ate the sack, didn't fumble. The Patriots punted the ball away. Obviously, it's not good to take a sack, but when you looked at his options, I think he actually made the right read, not forcing it into a dangerous window. There was another time where he was looking at a slant from Baker, and he only dropped back a step or two and immediately was ready to throw. But Baker wasn't quite ready to receive the slant. He kind of drifted upfield, wasn't really looking back. The linebacker realized what was happening and started to take away that throw. Maybe you could have thrown it, but I don't fault Maye for holding that one back and saying, okay, I'm not totally comfortable with this. I've got the ability to scramble. He held the ball back. His drop was too shallow to really get to the backside this time because he only took one step. You're not going to take one step and then make all your reads. You're going to get killed by the defensive tackle if you do that. So he pulled the ball back, scrambled out the back, waited to see if anybody came open in the scramble drill in the second reaction. No one did. He threw the ball away, and that happened a couple times, a couple smart throwaways. There was another time where he hit the top of his drop, was waiting for someone to settle down in an open spot in zone, but he was still just yards away from breaking, and so he took the check down with good timing. Nothing risky, nothing too risky. He hit some big-time throws, but he didn't force anything, and that was a good balance that he struck to operate this offense. The only real problem that I had with him was overthrows on simple reads. Kayshon Boutte in the flat had to make an Odell Beckham-esque one-handed catch above him for no reason. That was kind of rough. There was another time when Javon Baker settled underneath in a hole in the zone. He got overthrown. He had to fully stretch out and kind of exposed himself to a hit. Would have been a tough catch. He didn't quite come down with it. And for some people, those bad misses or those easy misses completely ruins Maye for them. Like there's a good amount of people out there who don't like Maye, and if they don't, they won't like this performance because he missed some easy layups. But I think, look, man, if you can keep the ball out of harm's way and hit the big-time throws and get to the backside, and his pocket movement was great. I thought he helped out his tackles all night. There was one play where he rolled into pressure that I haven't even talked about, rolled right into Nolan Smith's pressure. And this is, I think, an underrated throw to showcase your athletic ability. You're turning your back to the defense on the play action. You're turning around and there's someone right in your lap. How do you make a contested throw? And how do you make the most of the very limited space that you have? He turned around, faded away, flicked it sidearm, got it into the flat. I talked about that throw when I was breaking down JJ McCarthy's preseason debut, and it was a great overall performance, or a good overall performance. But one throw that he missed twice was rolling into pressure, trying to get into the flat, finding some athletic position to throw from. He couldn't do it and be accurate. Maye did, so I like to see that. There was one other poor moment that I noticed. Where he didn't get to the second read or the third read, and he should have. It wasn't even a bad throw from him. I saw a lot of people on Twitter hype up this throw, actually. It was the go ball to Javon Baker, where Baker ran out of bounds and the ref threw his hat. He came back in bounds, and the ball was there for him, but it wouldn't have mattered because he ran out of bounds. Can't be the first one to touch the ball. And because it was a well-thrown goal, everybody was like, oh, Drake Maye, really nice throw, like really nice ball, good stuff. Baker's fault for getting pushed out of bounds. And like, yeah, it is Baker's fault for getting pushed out of bounds. But if your wide receiver gets pushed out of bounds, you shouldn't throw it to him. Kind of a basic concept, I know, but I think it was kicking a lot of people's ass. They liked the go ball. But get to the second read. The tight end was wide open crossing the field. So he did get to the backside a few times, but not every time. But overall, he looked more than capable of operating this offense. He looked better than Jacoby Brissett. And I don't quite understand this idea of Maye should sit the whole year. Again, there are people in media who say that. I just don't think he's the kind of prospect that even needed that. And Jacoby Brissett is certainly not good enough to keep him off the field. So I would just advise stopping the whole charade. Mayo has already softened his stance on Maye starting. At the beginning, he was like, Brissett is the starter, and that's that. Now it's like, we'll see. And we will see how the third preseason game goes. I guess Maye could really stink it up. But I was really high on him. I think this performance showed that he can move the ball down the field. He can hit some impressive throws. I don't think the wide receivers are going to be great for him year one, is kind of what I'm taking away from this preseason. But it's not his fault that his guys are dropping the big posts and getting pushed to the sideline and messing up the timing of their stems and stuff. And I don't know. I think it could be definitely rough for Maye year one, but I don't know why he should sit on the bench for all of it. I don't know why he would sit on the bench for all of it. If you are Mayo and you're thinking about year two, wouldn't you rather have a full year working with Maye, seeing what works, what doesn't work, getting a good feel for the type of player he is, so then you know all that year two when the weapons are better, instead of all of a sudden the weapons are new and Maye is new? Like, what's the point in that? I get it if Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback and you're competing for an NFC championship game and Love is there for when he's retired or traded, or even Mahomes with Alex Smith because they were a playoff caliber team. This is like Tyrod Taylor starting over Herbert. This is like Tyrod Taylor starting over Baker Mayfield. It's not going to last, so why even try, I think. So, loved Maye's debut. Another guy we got a good look at was Jayden Daniels. Now, Stephen Ruiz pointed out something that I thought was interesting with Daniels' preseason games. His average time to throw is 1.9 seconds. His average depth of target is 5.6 yards, and his pressure rate is 0. He has one attempt over 2.5 seconds. Ruiz corrects himself with the second deep ball. I think that's a good thing for him to point out. Yeah, there's not a lot of reads like the ones that Maye is making in this Washington offense right now. Daniels doesn't even have the opportunity to hit the backside, so it's like we don't know if he's going to be able to do that or not right now. He's doing what he's asked. It's a very static offense, a very safe offense, one that is taking a lot of the decision-making out of the quarterback's hands. And all Daniels needs to do is hit the top of his drop, make a decision, hand it off or throw. And when he is throwing it, like, he's hitting it. And his accuracy has actually been very notable in this offense right now. He hit a bunch of hitches. Shocking in a Cliff Kingsbury offense that there's a bunch of hitches. That was Kyler's number one throw as well. Or curls, whatever you want to call them. And he was throwing those beautifully, like low and outside. The corner was breaking on him, but there was nothing he could do because it was just put in the perfect spot. And there was no fat in the footwork of Daniels. He had a nice throw over the middle to the tight end crossing the field. The linebacker was there reaching his hand out. It went just over his outstretched fingers and hit, I think it was Bates, right in stride. So Daniels is operating the offense the way it's designed. I just don't love the way it's designed, I guess. But whatever. Maybe it'll open up a little bit in the regular season. It will certainly open up a lot in the regular season, but there's still going to be a lot of this RPO, underneath, quick throw type of stuff in the Kingsbury offense. And unfortunately, it's not like the Shanahan offense or the McDaniel offense where the ball is getting out fast and it's digs over the middle where guys can create yak. It's like the ball is getting out fast, and basically where they catch the ball is where they go down because there's a cornerback on top of them who can close on them and make the tackle. Now, McLaurin did have one nice play where he ran a hitch or a curl, or I don't know. I don't even, maybe this makes me a fraud. I don't know the fucking difference. Curl, hitch, whatever. But at any rate, McLaurin hit this hitch. Daniels hit the top of his drop, got the ball out, put it on his back shoulder. He was able to turn up field and create an explosive game. So there's a little bit of yak, but that's more to do with the individual greatness of McLaurin and also Daniels to hit the throw than anything designed into the offense. So I don't know. It was, these preseason performances of Daniels have been good, but I prefer what Maye has put on tape a little bit better, just because I like his offense more. Really, Daniels hasn't done anything wrong. There was one play that concerned me a little bit from Jayden where they actually opened it up, let him drop back a little bit. The Dolphins heated him up. They brought the nickel from his right, and the tight end immediately released and kind of ran this bender between the two safeties. But with no tight end there were actually two free runners because the Dolphins totally overloaded the right side of the line with a tackle, a backer, another tackle, and an end, and a nickel. There's only three guys there to block them. Two guys come free, and Jayden just completely like panics, I would say. Immediately, he just throws up a pass that probably goes 500 feet up in the air and lands out of bounds. And like, I get there were unblocked pressure. You got to do something else. There's a stick route that Jahan Dotson was running. Hit that. Replace the blitz with a dump off to Eckler. That's fine. If you really want to be money and to make my jaw drop and anoint you the next Hall of Famer, he could have slid away from the overloaded pressure side and looked at that bender splitting the two safeties. It's a possible throw, not really a realistic expectation in someone's second preseason game, but whatever. There was also a wide receiver sitting down behind that bender that maybe you could have hit. So there was kind of only one opportunity for him to make any kind of big time throw down the field, and he just didn't. He didn't even really try. He tried to hit that whole shot to McLaurin. I guess it could work. There was kind of some space for McLaurin as the nickel was actually the safety playing over the top, Kadar Kohu. And there was a little bit of space, but you need to throw a bullet like right over that sinking corner in front of the safety. Like I said, this ball went 500 feet in the air and out of bounds. So he didn't get his feet set. Like, nothing was good here against the blitz. And then everything else was just kind of timing based. Really good. Like, he looks good as a quick game player. But when he had the opportunity to kind of drop back and throw it a little more, didn't do a great job. It's fine. It's whatever. It's a preseason game. It's tough. The Dolphins offensive coordinator came from Baltimore. This was a well-designed blitz that got someone free. It's fine. Just have to note it, you know. There was one moment where he took it on a read option. He did not slide. He did not slide. Chop Robinson collapsed inside, so did the linebacker. Really soft edge. He took off, got a first down. Great play. I have always appreciated that Daniels wants to get everything. He runs like a running back. He was trying to follow Bates as far as he could. If he was a running back, I'd say great job, but he's not. He's a quarterback. Get down. Don't take an unnecessary hit. Dan Quinn was pissed at him, giving him the get down signal. I'd like to see him slide there. There was one other moment where he didn't have the ball on a read option, but he still totally distracted the linebacker and opened up a huge hole for Robinson. So you did see what he can offer you in this offense in these last two preseason games. Even if I don't love Cliff Kingsbury, Jayden looks like a good RPO quick game thrower. He can offer you explosive plays on the ground and with his go ball. We'll see if this offense is just too predictable. If it doesn't, if there's too many hitches, the same things that kind of sunk him in Arizona. I think those all might be there. But Daniels does look like a guy who can at least operate some of the core principles of this offense at a high level. Just nothing too impressive from him so far in the two preseason games. Like I saw from Maye, like I've seen from Caleb. It's fine. It's fine. I want to turn my attention now to the defensive side of the ball. And I want to talk a bit about the Buffalo Bills in the wake of Matt Milano's injury. He tore his bicep and will miss several months, if not the whole season. It's especially concerning when he was just coming off a major injury. Last year versus Jacksonville, he fractured the tibial plateau in his leg, and I think damaged his MCL in that injury as well. That caused him to miss the entire year. Now he might miss all of this year. He's in his 30s. It's looking rough. Someone's going to need to step up. The good news for the Bills, first of all, is that they stepped up last year. From week 6 on, after Milano's injury, the Bills' defense did not at all collapse, and Milano wasn't even the only injury that they had. The Bills were top 10 in yards allowed per game. They were 11th in yards allowed per play. They were especially good against the pass. They were top 5 in interceptions, top 5 in sack rate, top 10 in net yards per attempt. They allowed less than 200 total passing yards per game. Really nice stuff from them there. The problem was against the run. 4.6 yards per carry, that ranked 28th in the league. Only the Cardinals, the Giants, Broncos, and Bengals were below them. What head coach and defensive mind Sean McDermott likes to do is keep two safeties high pretty consistently. He'll do a lot of disguising. He'll start in 2 high shells, rotate them down, start in 1 high shells, rotate them up. But what you're going to see from the Bills the majority of the time is quarters, cover 2, or a mix of both, quarter, half, also known as cover 6. And they're going to protect against the Mahomeses of the world. They're not going to allow these big-time quarterbacks in the AFC to hit go balls up the sideline all day, Joe Burrow. And if it means being the 28th ranked rushing team, so be it. So be it. That's the world they're going to live in. They're very good in their zone coverages. McDermott has always done a nice job developing their depth. Like I said, Milano's not the only guy that went down last year. And yet still they posted fine results. But now this year they're already being tested. So who are going to be the guys that step up? Well, one name to keep an eye on with the way he played in the second preseason game is going to be Joe Anderson, a linebacker, a local kid. He went to the University of Buffalo after growing up in the area, and now he's playing for the Bills. It's a good story, and he's legitimately intriguing to me. Let me see if I can pull up his RAS here real quick. Not that that's the end-all, be-all, but it was at a 9.35, 32 reps on the bench, money, and needed because he had short arms, needs to be strong. Great vertical, over a 10-foot broad jump, 4.22 shuttle time, 4.6 40-yard dash with a good 10-yard split. Checks a lot of athletic boxes for you outside of his height and his arm length, I'd say. Not the lengthiest dude. But I loved how he was able to overcome that in the preseason game. Because he's not going to be able to hold his arms out and hold an offensive lineman off of him for a prolonged period of time as he waits and waits and waits for the running back to get there, he's going to pop these guys and then disengage real quick. He's like a boxer. You know, you jab and then you pull back. You jab and then you pull back. And that's how he's going to take on these blocks. And that jab is no joke. He'll get in kind of under your pads, and he was giving James Daniels a ton of trouble, the starting right guard for the Steelers. He ran right through him a couple times. Broderick Jones, maybe we'll get into his struggles later, but he couldn't really block. Anderson, even Zach Frazier has had a fantastic preseason. The rookie center, wasn't immune to Anderson running through his face. I didn't really see Anderson get caught up at all on contact. I think Mason McCormick, the backup rookie, got him one time and kind of escorted him down the field and sustained that block for a long time. But outside of that, Really, I thought he did a nice job triggering downhill quick, first to the ball almost every time, and running through whoever he needed to run through to get there. With that quick jab, get off, create a little bit of space for himself, continue towards the running back. Also, in coverage, I was very impressed. One of the first plays of the game, he was assigned to guard the tight end, Pat Fryermuth. He's a starter. Running vertical between the two safeties, like I mentioned earlier, that's how the Bills are going to want to play, and that's how they played a lot in the Steelers game. Two high safeties going to each sideline. He's got to deal with the number 3 going vertical right between them. Ran with him perfectly in stride. And overall was sticky in coverage all day. And he was smart, I think, when the quarterback started to scramble, making the decision, should I go after the quarterback here? Or should I attach myself to a wide receiver downfield? Those are kind of the conflicts that guys like Russell Wilson and Justin Fields put you in. I thought he did a good job managing that, containing when he was the guy that needed to do the containing. And when there was someone else to do it, he would turn around and look for receivers downfield and took away some big passes. One time he had maybe attached himself a little bit early to a mesh concept. I apologize for the siren coming in behind me here. On a third down, he had a will linebacker right next to him who could have taken the crosser. He probably should have continued to get depth, and there was a guy wide open downfield. That was a bit of an issue. One time, George Pickens got him pretty bad, but that's to be expected. A number 1 receiver lined up in the slot in trips, that number 3 spot, gets a linebacker as his assignment. He kind of got cooked, but George Pickens wasn't targeted there, so that's all water under the bridge. Overall, Anderson wasn't perfect, but I thought with his athletic profile and the way he was able to take on contact and the way he was able to trigger and the way he was able to guard people deep downfield, it's like this guy could be a legitimate player for them. This guy could be a legitimate player for them. And I think that at this point, Sean McDermott has earned the benefit of the doubt of developing these guys. So he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. Tackling, one more thing I'll say. Tackling, a bit of an issue for him sometimes. I think that's where the arm length couldn't really be ignored. He had good technique taking on the contact, but ensnaring some of these people out in the open field, he didn't always do the greatest job. So not a perfect day for Anderson, but definitely someone I want to shout out. Couldn't quite tell how the safeties were in this Bills defense against the Steelers because, well, the Steelers offense had their own problems and couldn't really test anything downfield. So it was a pretty easy day for the safeties with guys like Anderson, Dorian Williams, Terrell Bernard. Greg Rousseau had an awesome day, stopping passes before the ball was even out, right? So that still kind of remains to be seen. How will the Damar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp tandem fare during the regular season? But this linebacking core does have some legitimate promise, I think, despite the thinness after Milano's injury. I think there's some guys who can step up, and who knows if we'll see Milano at 100% ever again, which is a shame. I'm actually maybe a little bit more concerned about the Bills' offense at this point than their defense. Not that I'm that concerned about an offense that employs Josh Allen, but I'm not 100% sure I'm sold on Joe Barry and his obsession with the downhill running game. If their pass rate is below a certain number, I'm going to be mad. I don't care who the receivers are. If this is the James Cook show all year, I will not be very happy with Barry, and that's kind of was his strategy towards the end of last year, which did steady things a little bit, I guess. But when you look at the numbers, the difference between him and Ken Dorsey was pretty negligible. And I actually think I prefer Joe Dorsey's philosophy in this offense and with Josh Allen more than Brady's. It's fine, though. It's fine. We'll see. But I did just draft Khalil Shakir in my 32-person fantasy league. So I'll just say he better throw the ball a little bit more. Also, as long as I'm on the topic of the Bills, Osiris Torrance. I don't remember him doing this last year. Before every single snap, he shoots his arm out like he's jump setting the guy, trying to draw them off sides. Is that not a false start? Can you just move your arms however you want as an offensive lineman before the ball is snapped? Because he's very deliberately shooting his hand out like violently. It's not a slow raise or point at like the mic or something like that. He's a guard. Why would he be doing that anyway? It's not a communication thing. He's actually just pretending to jump set and trying to get guys to jump. But I think the only person who jumped before the snap last year was his own right tackle alongside of him. So I don't know how effective of a strategy that is, especially if he does it basically every single play. Just ignore it when it happens. I thought that was a funny strategy. Moving on to the Steelers side of this game. Might as well talk about them because they're interesting. I am a little bit concerned about their offense right now. I know it's just the preseason, but Russ has been banged up all training camp, comes into the game. Pocket management, horrible. Broderick Jones has played very bad. His hands are incapable of moving independently. Every single punch that he throws is both of his hands like circling around all wide. He gets probably like 3 feet apart with both of his gloves and gives like Greg Rousseau in this case free access to his frame. Absolutely annihilated in this game. And against the run too, not like a big positive. And I know that he's been messed with, like they moved him to right side and then with left side, right? There hasn't really been a clear. I don't think Tomlin has done a good job just setting the tackles at all. Like Dan Moore is still a starter, even though they've drafted 2 first-round guys now. Where is Fautanu fitting in? Are they asking Broderick Jones to make a midseason flip again? I don't know exactly what's going on there. So his development has definitely been messed with, but I don't know why being on the left or right side would affect how wide his punch gets. And this was a problem with at Georgia as well. He would constantly let people into his frame, and I actually think he's gotten a little bit better since his time at Georgia, keeping his head out of his punches. Like he used to just kind of lunge and like be looking straight down at the ground, which always frustrated me. Now it seems like he's looking at the guy at least, but he's still letting them bull rush him into oblivion and throw him off to the side. So that's a bit of a problem. I was talking about Russ though. On the first sack that Broderick Jones allowed, Russ just walked straight backwards into Rousseau when he had a perfectly clean pocket to step up in. And that was a pretty common problem with Russ last year. And all he could do all of last season was dump it off. And I just think, why start him when you have Fields on the bench? And I know Fields is a bit of a disaster in some areas, even still. You can tell this preseason. He's holding the ball a long time. He is, it's chaos, right? There's no timing. But at least that problem exists with Russ as well. Like in almost the exact same way. It's not even like it's mitigated in any kind of meaningful statistical category. Like if Fields is the 99th percentile in terms of holding the ball and taking sacks, Russell Wilson is 96, right? So why not add some juice to your offense with someone who has a strong arm at this point, or a stronger arm, is way faster, and can add an element of explosiveness to the offense. Like right now, where is that coming from? Najee isn't an explosive back, and with Warren now hurt, he's set up for a big workload early in the season. Pickens is an explosive player, but he's the only receiver really that you trust that's out there. I saw Van Jefferson, by the way, catch a pass in this preseason game. We talk a lot about transitioning from catcher to runner and getting upfield. This guy caught the ball, tons of space out in front of him, and he starts running like directly sideways and picks up like -1 yards after the catch. I'm like, brother, how is this your wide receiver too? Tomlin, what are we doing? So is it just going to be Pickens? Like, as your only guy who can create anything big downfield? Like, at least with Wilson, not with Wilson, at least with Fields, there is the chance that he rips off a 40-yard run on any given play. So I would roll with him and at least give yourself, like, he could be your wide receiver too, basically. He's the guy who's going to be able to move the ball down the field in a big chunk outside of Pickens. But I don't know, man. I know Mike Tomlin always gets 9 wins. The defense looks really good for Pittsburgh. Benton was super disruptive. Ogunjobi was super disruptive in this game. I love Landon Roberts, and I think Patrick Queen is an upgrade alongside of him. Joey Porter Jr. looks pretty locked down. Minkah Fitzpatrick is healthy. So I guess I can't forget about how good this defense looks. But man, if this offensive line can't be a real strength for this team because they've invested so much in it, it's hard to see how this offense finishes top 20. It's hard to see how this offense finishes top 20 with the offensive line playing like it has this preseason. So I'm concerned. I'm very concerned. In a tough division, maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year that Tomlin just can't quite keep the streak alive. I'm maybe not predicting it, but I'm very concerned about the state of the Steelers. I'll say that. Anyway, enough about the Steelers quarterback situation. That's still all up in the air. Let's turn our attention to a team that's quarterback situation is no longer up in the air because they named a starter. The Las Vegas Raiders will trot out Gardner Minshew week 1. And we'll see how long he can hold on to the starting job, because the more I'm looking into this, the more I think that Minshew will probably give way to O'Connell at some point. When I first heard about who they named, I thought it was fine. Like, I didn't really care. Both of these guys, in my opinion, are pretty mid. So I was like, okay, Minshew is the vet. He got the Colts within a game of the playoffs last year. I don't know if the Raiders will actually be good, but they're not in rebuild mode, or at least that's not their mentality. So going with the vet made sense to me. Minshew can scramble around a little bit. He hit some big plays this preseason. Him and Trey Tucker connected a couple different times, 40 yards down the field, a sail route after a jump off side, a free play, hit on the sideline in the middle of the zone coverage. That was another big play. Minshew hit DJ Turner on a crosser with pressure in his face to score a touchdown versus the Vikings. So there were some exciting moments that Minshew had that O'Connell didn't really provide, and also O'Connell threw a bad pick 6 to end his night versus the Cowboys. So it was like, okay, looking at the big plays and like the highlights that I saw on Twitter, and without really watching the games and what I just already knew about these quarterbacks, I thought, okay, Minshew's a fine starter. But today I went back and I watched the Raiders preseason, and I was like, oh, this offense is actually functioning a lot better under O'Connell. Even though he's not hitting the big plays, the timing is better. The offense is marching down the field under O'Connell. The pick sucked, but Minshew is not above a pick like that when we look at what he's done in his career. I'm going to go through some numbers here. Minshew's completion percentage, sub 50% this preseason, 48.5. In the Cowboys game, his accuracy was all over the place. If it wasn't for that big throw to Tucker, that game would have been a complete disaster for Minshew. The timing of this offense is all off with him under center. He's averaging almost 3 seconds per throw. That's a long time. 77% of his passes this preseason have been marked as deep. 77%. He is holding the ball. He is bombing it downfield. He is not being accurate. Sure, he's connected a few times. Great. Sick. It's not good offense. And when you look at the team success rate with both of these guys under center, O'Connell is at 43%. Minshew is at 29, a 29% success rate. You want to be at 50%. That's kind of the beautiful thing about football. I feel like everything kind of balances out at 50% when you look at regular season success rate. I think it's a little bit lower for these offenses in the preseason because there's so many bad quarterbacks playing. But ideally, it's about a 50-50 even tug of war. So 43%, not too far off. 29%, we have real problems. We have real problems that one deep shot to Trey Tucker can't really solve. And there are other stats that take big plays into account, like let's say with success rate, you throw a 6-yard pass on 1st and 10. That's a successful play. The next play, maybe it's a 0-yard run. That's a 50% success rate, and you gain 6 yards. Now let's say there's a 50-yard pass on 1st down and then a 0-yard run. That's still a 50% success rate. So there are better numbers to take into account, the big plays like EPA, expected points added. If you don't know, I've used it on the show. I don't know if I've quite explained it. Not every play is going to score a touchdown, but if you go from the 1-yard line or your own 1-yard line to the other 1-yard line, you basically did, right? You basically scored a touchdown there. The odds of you scoring have gone up astronomically. You've scored like 6.99 points, let's say. or you can estimate it as that. And that's kind of what EPA is, expected points added, trying to quantify how the odds of scoring have changed after each play that you make. So a 50-yard bomb is going to be way more than a 6-yard pass in terms of EPA. But even EPA doesn't like Minshew, even though O'Connell has thrown a pick six and hasn't hit the big plays. He's actually ahead of Minshew this preseason in offensive pass EPA per dropback. Kind of crazy. And he's done that by hitting the check down, being more accurate, playing with better timing. So, and he's younger. So there's a bit more potential within him, I'd say. The more I've kind of looked at it, like I said before, at first I thought it made sense to name Minshew. Now I'm starting to think it doesn't make so much sense when I look at these true media numbers and watch the Raiders film. And during the Raiders game, the announcers, I think, were on the right track there. They were like, oh man, Minshew looking awful. Aiden O'Connell has a great opportunity here to win the starting job. He came in and it looked like he was going to run away with it. Like he was playing way better than Minshew was. And then he threw that pick six at the end. And what happened there was he looked right. I thought maybe the wide receiver to that side could have done a better job settling down in zone. There was a zone coverage, and he kind of kept running into the leverage of the intermediate defender there. He ended up running past him, but at that point, O'Connell had moved on to the next read. And it's just tough to throw a hitch late like that. Guys, defenders have seen it because it stopped, right? The route has stopped. They're breaking on it. O'Connell threw it. It got picked off, returned for a touchdown. Tough throw, definitely. But didn't love the receiver on the front side, the route he ran versus the zone. And I don't want to write it off from O'Connell. But again, I don't think it should have prevented him from potentially being named the starter here, or maybe giving it a third week if you're not sure. Like, I know they wanted to name it after the second game, but perhaps it's a bit premature because I don't know how you can look at these numbers and say like, oh yeah, we're sure Minshew's the right move. Like, take your time. Name it after the third preseason game, because I don't think Minshew has separated himself yet. Now, maybe it'll help to have this consistency, to have this pecking order done early. I get it, maybe for the culture, just to establish who's who. But did you pick the right guy? I don't know. I will say that Minshew has a higher EPA per drop back versus the blitz this preseason by a fair margin. I do think that blitzing O'Connell is a very valid option for you. He is a bit of a statue back there. I think that'll do it for today's episode. A little bit of a shorter one, but I didn't have a guest lined up. If I didn't talk about your favorite team or what you want to hear about, don't worry. Follow my TikTok, follow my Twitter, Theo Ash NFL. I'll be doing film reviews there. And follow the Pro Football Network platform wherever you can as well, PFN 365. They've got me and a bunch of other brilliant contributors talking about everything, NFL, and a bunch of college stuff as well. There's a ranking of every single college quarterback situation, all 134 of them on the website right now. I'd recommend going to check that out. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe wherever you're listening to this right now, if you haven't, if you're a new listener. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back this Friday with another episode and a guest, hopefully. Stay tuned for that and enjoy the rest of your day or evening. This has been Theo Ash and Your Football Opinion.